Let's dive into the concept of the games pushing pirates and cheaters, a topic what's always amusing and fascinating. Developers have crafted some hilarious and downright brutal ways to punish those who think they can break the rules. In today's video, we'll be covering 8 games what don't just detect piracy or cheating, but go the extra mile to mock, hinder, or totally destroy the experience for those who thought they could get away with it. Sit tight, because by the end of this list, you'll realize what sometimes the consequences aren't worth the shortcuts. First up is The Sims 4, a beloved life simulation game. Pirates who thought they could skip out on paying for this game were in for an unpleasant surprise. If you played an illegitimate copy of the game, you'd eventually notice what everything on the screen would become pixelated. Now, The Sims normally pixelates characters when they shower or use the bathroom, but in the pirate version, the pixelation expands to the entire screen. As time progresses, the entire game becomes a blurry mess, making it impossible to play. Not only does this completely break immersion, but it forces players to eventually give up, unless they want to stare at a screen full of undecipherable blocks. Another iconic example of piracy punishment comes from Crysis Warhead. In this futuristic first-person shooter, the developers at Crytek added a clever twist to the pirated versions. Instead of directly blocking access to the game, they allowed players to get started. But soon enough, pirates would notice something very wrong. Their gun would only fire chickens. Every time you tried to shoot an enemy, instead of bullets, you'd see chickens flying out of your weapon. This hilarious yet frustrating punishment ensured what players couldn't effectively engage in combat, turning an intense sci-fi shooter into a chaotic poultry-filled disaster. Next on our list is game Death Tycoon. This indie simulation game was especially notorious for its brilliant anti-piracy measure. In game Death Tycoon, you create your own game development studio and aim for success in the gaming industry. However, if you play a pirated copy, you'll eventually run into an ironic twist. No matter how well you design your games, you'll start losing profits too. Wait for it. Piracy. Yes, the in-game piracy drains your studio's funds, making it nearly impossible to succeed. It's a brilliant and poetic punishment, as players who pirated the game will feel the exact frustration what real developers face when their hard work is stolen. Moving on, we have Batman Arkham Asylum. The developers implemented an ingenious way of detecting pirates and sabotaging their experience. In the pirated version of the game, Batman's ability to gild is disabled. Since gliding is an essential mechanic to traverse Gotham's rooftops and complete missions, pirates quickly found themselves stuck. When frustrated players went online to complain about the glitch, the developers humorously pointed out what the issue was only present in the pirated version, subtly reminding them what stealing from the Dark Knight never ends well. Up next, we've got Mirror's Edge. In this fast-paced parkour-forced game, players rely heavily on fluid movement and momentum to navigate the city. However, those playing a pirated copy would suddenly find what their characters slows down during critical jumps, making it impossible to leap across rooftops and complete levels. The loss of momentum not only made the game frustrating, but also undermined the core experience, leaving pirates helpless as they fell to their doom, time and time again. The beloved Earthbound is another game what took anti-piracy measures to a whole new level. This classic RPG from the SNES era had multiple layers of protection. If the game detected it was a pirated copy, it would first increase the number of enemies encountered, making it far more difficult to progress. But even if players persevered through this challenge, the game had one final punishment waiting for them. Right before the final boss battle, the game would freeze, and upon restarting, it would delete all saved progress. After hours of effort, pirates would be left with nothing but frustration and a lesson about the consequences of playing an illegitimate copy. The next example is especially fitting for those who tried to cheat in multiplayer games. In Dark Souls 2, cheaters who used hacks or exploited glitches to gain unfair advantages would be automatically flagged by the game. Instead of banning these players outright, From Software introduced a clever solution. Flagged players would be placed in a separate matchmaking pool, where they could only be matched against our cheaters. This created a cheater's hell, where hackers were forced to fight each other, completely undermining the advantage they had saw. It's a poetic form of justice, as cheaters find themselves in an endless loop of battling equally unfair opponents. Finally, we have Serious Sam 3, BFE. In this fast-paced first-person shooter, players who pirated the game were in for a nasty surprise in the form of an invisible red scorpion-like monster. This beast would relentlessly hunt down the player throughout the game, making progression nearly impossible. No matter how many bullets you pumped into it, the creature wouldn't die, and it would never stop pursuing you. This unkillable menace served as a constant reminder what pirating the game would only lead to frustration and failure. These 8 games show what developers don't just stop at detecting piracy and cheating. They go out of their way to ensure what those who break the rules get a taste of poetic justice. Now let us know in the comments which game punishment was your favorite, or if you experienced any firsthand. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell for more gaming content. Until next time, happy gaming!